I was born just 7 minutes before my sister, but somehow it was enough time for my parents to decide who deserved more love. My name is Madeline Harper. Everyone calls me Maddie. And if you asked my mother, she'd say I came out a little too serious, a little too stubborn, not quite delicate enough. Meanwhile, my twin sister Jessica? She was the sunshine, the sweet one, the girl who made parenting look easy. We grew up in the same house in Colorado Springs, but it felt like we were living in two completely different homes. Jessica got the birthday parties with ponies and photo booths. I got assigned to help clean up. She got ballet lessons and weekend, spa days with Mom. I taught myself how to change a bike tire after riding mine alone to the public library. My mom used to say, "You're the older one, Maddie. You're supposed to be strong." But what she meant was, you don't need as much. When we turned 8, Jessica got a princess canopy bed and a new puppy. I got her hand-me-down comforter and the task of feeding that dog every morning. My dad, quiet, passive, and always avoiding conflict, never once said a word. If Jessica broke something, I was the one who got scolded. If I came home with an A, I got a nod. If Jessica managed a B+, the whole neighborhood knew about it. For years, I tried to make sense of it. Maybe I wasn't lovable in the way she was. Maybe something about me made it easy to ignore me. But the older I got, the more I realized I wasn't the problem. I was just born into a family that had already picked favorites. I moved through life quietly, clinging to the one person who actually saw me, my grandfather. He was the only one who ever made me feel like I mattered. When he passed, he left me 2 things, a sketchbook and a promise. Your eye, Maddie. You see things most people miss. Use it. Make something that's yours. So I did. I spent high school building a portfolio instead of chasing prom dates. I graduated with honors, while Jessica took a year off to find herself in Europe, funded by my parents, of course. And when college time came, I found out over dinner, without even a conversation, that the family savings were going to her. Jessica needs structure, my mom said as she passed the mashed potatoes. You'll figure it out. You always do. That night, I packed a duffel bag and left home with $300 in cash, a second-hand laptop, and my grandfather's sketchbook. I didn't cry when I boarded that Greyhound bus out of town. I didn't call to say goodbye. I just stared out the window and made myself a promise. If they're not going to see me, I'll make sure the world does. I rented a room the size of a closet near a community college in Denver and got by on night. Shifts, ramen noodles, and quiet determination. I didn't have a safety net. I had deadlines, rent, and dreams no one but me believed in. Sometimes I wondered what Jessica was doing, probably getting a car paid for by Dad or posting selfies in the sun while I scrubbed floors after class. But I didn't let that bitterness grow. I let it burn hot enough to fuel me, but never consume me. By the time I was 22, I had worked my way into a top design school in Seattle on a full merit scholarship. It was the kind of break you don't get unless you earn every inch of it. I texted my mom about the scholarship. She replied 2 days later. That's nice. Jessica just launched her fashion blog. She's so creative, don't you think? I stopped expecting them to clap for me. I stopped expecting them to notice at all. But a small part of me, just a flicker, still hoped that if I succeeded enough, they'd finally see me. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Seattle was gray most days, but to me it was golden. Every rain-soaked sidewalk, every cold morning bus ride to class, it all meant something. It meant I was somewhere I chose, doing something I fought to reach. My studio apartment had no heat, and the floor creaked like it was older than the building itself, but it was mine. No one told me what to wear, what to say, or who I should be more like. While Jessica posted sponsored content about her daily rituals and pastel skincare, I worked 3 part-time jobs just to afford groceries. Mornings started with mopping the floors at the university library. Afternoons were lectures, critiques, and the endless refining of my portfolio. Evenings meant waiting tables at a downtown pizza joint where I sometimes sketched thumbnails on receipt paper between orders. Weekends, freelance gigs, logo designs, ad banners, whatever paid. And still, every assignment I submitted was polished, to the edge of perfection. Not because anyone asked, because no one did. One afternoon, during a design fundamentals class, my professor pulled me aside. His name was Julian Rowe, an eccentric genius with ink-stained fingers and zero patience for mediocrity. He tapped the corner of my latest storyboard and said, "You don't just design, Maddie. You tell stories. That's rare. Don't bury that." I nodded, but I didn't know how to respond. No one had ever said something like that to me and meant it. Later that month, Professor Rowe nominated me for the Avery Wallace Fellowship, a national award granted to 5 senior creatives each year. It came with a cash stipend, mentorship, and a 3-month internship in New York City. My hands trembled when I read the nomination email. I stared at it for nearly 20 minutes, unsure if it was real. I wanted to call someone, just to share the moment, but there was no one I could think of who'd actually care. So I screenshot the email, saved it to a folder titled Proof, and got back to work. Around the same time, Jessica transferred to my school. I found out the same way. I found out most things, through a social media post, new city, new campus. Time to shine. She was majoring in marketing with a branding and lifestyle focus, whatever that meant. Her dorm was the newest on campus, a private single suite with a mountain view. Mine was a walk-up 2 miles off campus with a flickering hallway light and neighbors who smoked out the windows. Dad had apparently co-signed a lease for her new car. Meanwhile, I was still budgeting for instant coffee. We ran into each other by accident one day near the campus cafe. She waved like we were old friends and said, "Wow, you look different. Seattle suits you. Kind of minimalist, like tortured artist chic." I smiled tightly, unsure if it was a compliment or just another dig wrapped in sparkle. That semester, we were placed in the same group for a collaborative design project. I proposed an interactive campaign using hand-drawn animation to tell real user stories. Jessica immediately shut it down. "It's a cool idea, but maybe too abstract. People like stuff that's fun, bright, quick, viral." The others nodded, and just like that, the campaign turned into a fashion-forward mock-up filled with trendy hashtags and pastel overlays. I did all the design work behind the scenes, animation, layout, copywriting. Jessica made the slideshow and presented it like it was her concept from day one. Afterward, Professor Rowe sent me a quiet email. "Maddie, I know who built that campaign. You lead in silence. But one day, you're going to have to speak louder than those who only know how to perform." I read it again and again that night, lying on my thrifted couch with the city buzzing outside my window. It wasn't the lack of credit that stung. It was realizing how easy it still was for me to be invisible. At the end of the semester, while most students planned spring break trips, I filled out internship applications. I spent nights editing my resume line by line, rewriting cover letters with a desperation that lived somewhere between hunger and hope. No one told me to, no one helped, but I applied anyway because I had no fallback plan. This had to work. Jessica, on the other hand, posted about her upcoming trip to Palm Springs. "Rest before the grind," her caption read. My grind never stopped long enough to rest. Out of 21 applications, 3 called back. One, the last one, was a boutique creative agency that specialized in educational design. They offered me a position. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. I took it. At the agency, I wasn't just fetching coffee. I designed infographics that were published in academic journals. I pitched ideas in meetings. For the first time, someone printed my work and pinned it to a wall for others to see. And slowly, quietly, something shifted inside me. I started believing that maybe I could do more than survive. I enrolled in a night course on interface simulation, something no one else in my circle found interesting, but I knew it was a growing field. I stopped waiting tables and doubled down on freelance gigs. Life was tight, chaotic, and unglamorous, but it was mine. Then, on a Thursday morning that smelled like burnt toast and deadlines, I got an envelope from the design department. My hands shook before I even opened it. I had been officially selected to move forward in the Avery Wallace Fellowship. Process. The next step? An in-person interview with the board. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But instead, I poured myself a cup of instant coffee and got back to work. Because no one was going to carry me across that finish line. But that didn't mean I couldn't get there anyway. The letter arrived on a Monday. Thick, glossy envelope. Gold-embossed seal. My hands were still damp from dishwater when I picked it up off the mail slot in my apartment hallway. I thought for a second it was the final confirmation for the Avery Wallace Fellowship. But it wasn't. It was from a title company back in Colorado Springs. At first, I thought they had sent it to the wrong person. My name was printed clearly, though. Madeline Harper. The return address was familiar. It was the same street my grandfather's house stood on. The one he left to me in his will. I opened the envelope, and what I read made my stomach drop. The letter confirmed a legal transfer of property. The house I had quietly believed was still mine. My one tether to something that once felt like love had been signed over to my sister, Jessica Harper. The paperwork was dated months ago. The signature at the bottom? Mine. Except I never signed anything. I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by unpaid bills and half-finished sketches, and tried to make sense of it. Then I remembered. 2 years earlier, my mother had asked me to sign something for tax purposes, saying it was just a routine document to help manage Grandpa's estate. I was 19, exhausted. I didn't ask enough questions. Turns out, that form had been a limited power of attorney. And now, that house, the one safe place I thought I could return to if everything else crumbled, wasn't mine anymore. I called the title office. They confirmed everything was legal. My mother had used that document to sign over ownership to Jessica, claiming it was to help with her new business venture. What business venture? I didn't even know Jessica was starting anything. I sat in silence, my ears ringing with a fury I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years, not because of the house itself, but because of what it symbolized. That once again, without even a conversation, something that belonged to me had been quietly taken away and given to her. For days, I debated whether to call, whether to confront, whether to scream. Instead, I flew home. When I walked through the front door, the air was thick with something I couldn't quite name. Guilt? Denial? Entitlement? Jessica was sitting at the kitchen island with a smoothie in one hand and her phone in the other. Mom was chopping vegetables. Dad looked like he was trying to disappear into his recliner. "Oh, Maddie," my mom said, blinking like she hadn't expected to see me ever again. "This is a surprise." Jessica looked up. "You should have called. I would have cleaned up." Cleaned up? She was living in my house. I sat down, not trusting myself to speak just yet. I got a letter, I said carefully. "From the title office." My mom paused. "Oh, that. She said it like she'd misplaced a dry cleaning receipt. "We were going to tell you," she added quickly. "It just made more sense this way. Jess is starting her boutique and needed space for product storage. You're always so independent. We figured you'd understand." You figured I'd understand. My voice didn't rise, but the room got colder anyway. Dad finally looked up. You never seemed interested in the house, and you were busy with your art stuff. My art stuff. The thing I had turned into a career while they treated it like a hobby. Jessica cleared her throat. It's not like I'm just using it for free. I'm investing in renovations. Mom and Dad co-signed a loan for me. That was the moment everything clicked. They had mortgaged the house. My grandfather's house. My house. For Jessica's startup. A clothing line, apparently, inspired by ethically conscious loungewear. And they hadn't even told me. You didn't think I deserved to know? I asked, voice cracking for the first time. Silence. Then my mom said it again, soft this time. Maddie, we just thought you'd be okay. That sentence. That cursed, sugar-coated sentence. The same one they had used my entire life as a way to justify treating me like I didn't need anything. Like I wasn't allowed to. I stood up slowly. Well, here's something you should know, I said. Your renovation loan? It's past due. My mom's eyes widened. How do you know that? I called the bank, I replied evenly. Since my name was once on that deed, I'm still listed on the old notifications. They reached out. There's a foreclosure notice scheduled. Jessica looked like she'd been slapped. Wait, what? That can't be right. It is. And they gave me an option. I could buy it back, clear the debt, save the house. The room filled with a new kind of silence, one that wasn't empty but full of fear. I looked around slowly, at the people who had never defended me, never celebrated me, never even respected me. And I let it hang for a long, quiet beat. And? My dad asked, barely above a whisper. Picked up my coat. I told them no. Jessica lunged forward. You're just going to let them take it? No, I said, turning toward the door. You did that. I walked out without looking back. That night, I booked my ticket back to Seattle, and when the bank foreclosed 3 weeks later, I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel satisfaction, either. Just release. Like I had finally stopped holding up a structure that was never meant to shelter me in the first place. New York didn't feel like a new beginning. It felt like stepping into the life I had built brick by brick, one quiet triumph at a time. The skyline didn't intimidate me. The pace didn't exhaust me. It felt right. Like I was finally standing in a place that matched the rhythm I'd been moving at my whole life. The Avery Wallace Fellowship came with a downtown apartment, small but light-filled, and a position at one of the top creative firms in the city. For the first time, I wasn't the intern or the assistant. I was a project lead. I pitched campaigns to major brands, directed storyboards, and had my name printed on national rollouts. I stopped apologizing for being serious, for working too much, for caring deeply. In New York, everyone was chasing something, and no one asked you to shrink to fit in. Back in Seattle, Professor Rose sent me a congratulatory note. I printed it and taped it above my new desk. It read, "You speak through your work. The world is listening now." I didn't call my parents when the article about my award ran in a national design magazine. But someone must have shown them, because one afternoon I got a message from my mom. I saw your article. You spoke really well in that interview. I didn't know you'd done so much. Your father said maybe we didn't really understand you. There was no apology, no ownership, just a half step toward awareness. Still, it was more than I ever expected. I left it on read for hours before I replied. Thanks. I hope you're both. Well, a week later, Jessica called. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. She started softly. I saw your award video. I waited. She continued slower now. I think I owe you an apology. I didn't know how much you had to do alone. I thought things just worked out for you because you were quiet about it. I didn't realize quiet didn't mean easy. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't angry. I wasn't moved. I just Understood. Thanks for saying that, I told her. I hope you're finding something for yourself now, too. We didn't say much else, but the silence between us felt different, not cold, just calm. Seasons passed. I stayed in New York, grew into the job, found friendships that felt like home. People who respected my boundaries without making me explain them. People who didn't ask what I had escaped, only what I was creating next. One of my coworkers once asked during a late-night pitch session, "How did you get so clear about who you are?" I paused before answering. Then I said, "Because for a long time, I wasn't allowed to be." He nodded like he understood without needing the full story. On my 27th birthday, I woke up to sunlight streaming across my apartment floor. No balloons, no phone calls, just a quiet kind of peace. I made coffee, opened the windows, and started sketching ideas for a personal project, a graphic novel about resilience, not for publication, not for clients, just for me. And as I worked, I realized something I hadn't been able to admit for years. I wasn't angry anymore, not at my parents, not at Jessica, not even at the version of myself who once bent over backward just to be noticed. That girl had survived long enough for me to become this woman, and I owed her grace, not shame. That afternoon, I hung a small frame on the wall across from my desk. Inside it, hand-lettered on textured paper, was a quote I'd written the night after I turned down the house. "You are not hard to love. They were just too small to see you." Sometimes I still get texts from my mom, pictures of flowers in her yard, a new cookie recipe she's trying. I reply politely, kindly, but I don't wait for them to say what I used to need. Jessica lives in Oregon. Now, she started a small wellness business. Occasionally, she sends me photos of workshops she leads. Once she wrote, "I'm trying to do things without shortcuts now. I think of you when it gets hard." I responded with a heart emoji and kept scrolling because I had learned that forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it just means release. On the surface, my life might look ordinary, just another New Yorker walking fast with coffee in hand. But everything I've built was earned. Every smile, every boundary. Every night I chose rest over proving myself. It all came from learning that love, to be real, can't be begged for. It has to be lived, and I was finally living.